Recently, images of Ukrainian snipers shocked the internet. We see them switching their scopes to thermal view, taking out entire squads, but that's not the only thing that surprised people online. In August 2025, a Ukrainian sniper, known only as Phantasma, took out 2 enemy soldiers with a single shot and set a new world record. But this isn't just the story of one extraordinary shot. It's the story of how thermal tech and artificial intelligence are redefining the modern battlefield, turning soldiers into invisible, nighttime predators with deadly precision. Let's get straight to the most jaw-dropping part of this story. On August 14, 2025, in the Pokrovsk, Myrnohad area in eastern Ukraine, a sniper team known as the Phantasmas pulled off something that felt more like sci-fi than military reality. One single shot, traveling through 4,000 meters of hostile air, taking out not 1 but 2 enemy soldiers at the same time. To put that in perspective, that distance is the equivalent of more than 2.5 miles. It's like standing at one end of the Golden Gate Bridge and hitting a target on the other end. The bullet took about 7.6 seconds to get there, long enough for you to blink 16 times. During that flight, the projectile was affected by gravity, crosswinds, air humidity, and even the rotation of the Earth, a phenomenon called the Coriolis effect, which makes freely moving objects drift because the planet is rotating. The shot didn't just beat the previous record of 3,800 meters, set in November 2023 by another Ukrainian shooter named Vyacheslav Kowalski. It set a new bar for what's technologically possible on today's battlefield. And here's the most fascinating detail. This feat wasn't just the result of extraordinary human skill. It was a perfect orchestra between the shooter, recon drones fitted with high-resolution cameras, and an AI system that processed thousands of variables in real time. The weapon used was the Snipex Alligator, a domestically produced Ukrainian rifle in 14.5mm caliber. This isn't your standard sniper rifle. It's an anti-material gun, originally designed to take out lightly armored equipment and vehicles. Each projectile weighs roughly 64 grams and leaves the barrel at about 1,000 meters per second. The recoil is so brutal the rifle needs a special impact absorption system and can only be fired with the shooter prone, using a beefy bipod. The shooter credited with the record, identified only as Phantasma for security reasons, didn't work alone. Team PRYVYDY used an integrated system where drones flew over the area, spotting potential targets through thermal cameras. Those drones streamed real-time data to a computer system that, using AI algorithms, calculated the hit probability while factoring in dozens of variables: wind speed at different altitudes, temperature, atmospheric pressure, the exact distance to the target, target movement, and even the specific ballistic characteristics of the ammunition being used at that moment. What makes this even more notable is the context. This wasn't a controlled shooting range situation. It happened in an active operational zone where the shooter and his team were under constant risk of counterattack, with the psychological stress of knowing that any mistake could mean not only mission failure, but potentially their own deaths. Now, let's dig into what actually lets these shooters operate with such deadly effectiveness. The star of the show is thermal scopes, devices that work by detecting infrared radiation, basically the heat any object gives off. Unlike traditional scopes that rely on visible light, or even light-intensifying night vision systems, that green night vision you see in movies, thermal scopes form images purely from temperature differences. Ukraine developed its own line of thermal optical gear called Archer, which has become a core piece of kit for the country's snipers. These devices can detect temperature differences as small as 0.05 degrees Celsius, which means they can pick out a human through thick foliage, fog, smoke, and even during snowstorms, conditions that would make normal or conventional night vision useless. One of the most striking things about these scopes is that they turn night from a tactical advantage into a deadly liability for anyone who doesn't have equivalent tech. For decades, militaries used darkness as cover for movement. Now night has become an environment where soldiers without thermal gear are easy targets, standing out like bright spots against a cold background. But the tech doesn't stop at scopes. Ukrainian snipers also use portable weather systems like the Kestrel 5700, a device that looks like a rugged smartphone but is actually a full weather station. It measures wind speed, direction, temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, and even altitude. All those data points are critical for long-range ballistic calculations, where a slight change in wind can be the difference between a hit and missing by meters. Complementing that are observation binoculars like the Bushnell Elite Tactical 8 40x60, which lets spotters pick out targets at extreme distances during the day. These observation systems work together with thermal scopes, creating redundant info streams that dramatically boost accuracy. But maybe the most revolutionary development is the integration of drones with thermal cameras into the long-range shooting process. Traditionally, a shooter relied on a spotter to make corrections after the first shot, a process called bracketing or spotting. With drones carrying thermal cameras positioned near the target, the team can see the bullet's impact in real time and make instant corrections if needed. AI fits into this ecosystem by processing that avalanche of data faster than any human could. AI systems analyze the drone's thermal footage, automatically highlight potential targets, compute distances using computer vision techniques, and even predict future movements based on observed behavior patterns. When tied together with meteorological and ballistic data, these systems can feed shooters firing solutions with frightening precision. This fusion of technologies isn't just technically impressive. It represents a fundamental shift in military doctrine. We're seeing the rise of what some experts call human-supervised autonomous weapon systems, where the machine does the heavy lifting of calculation and analysis, but the human keeps the final call on whether to pull the trigger. The 4-kilometer record is extraordinary, but it's not an isolated incident. In fact, it's part of a string of impressive achievements by Ukrainian snipers that show both their exceptional skill and the technological edge of their kit. The previous record of 3,800 meters, set by Vyacheslav Kowalski in November 2023, was itself a monumental feat. Kowalski, working for Ukraine's security service, used the Lord of the Horizon rifle, a weapon custom-built for extreme long shots. That rifle, fitted with an ultra-high-quality telescopic sight and an advanced ballistic compensation system, let Kowalski beat the prior record held by a Canadian shooter since 2017. What's interesting about Kowalski's shot is that it was made under particularly challenging weather conditions. Reports say there were crosswinds of roughly 15 kilometers per hour and temperatures around freezing, conditions that dramatically affect a projectile's trajectory. The fact that he managed to make the necessary correction and hit the target shows not just technical skill, but a deep grasp of ballistic physics. Another case worth noting happened in mid-2024 when a Ukrainian special operations team neutralized a group of enemy soldiers who were setting up an advanced observation post. What made that operation special was the distance, roughly 1,700 meters, and that it was carried out during a snowstorm. Thermal scopes let the shooters see through the heavy precipitation, while the targets, lacking equivalent gear, were completely unable to detect the threat. There's also the case of the Ghosts of Bakhmut, a sniper unit that operated during the intense fighting in that city in 2023. That team became known for consistent eliminations at distances beyond 2,300 meters using the Snipex Alligator. What set them apart wasn't a single record shot, but the brutal consistency of their effectiveness. Field reports indicate they maintained a success rate above 80% on shots over 2 kilometers, a figure that defies traditional sniper accuracy statistics. It's worth noting that not all these incidents were widely publicized. For operational security, many of the most effective actions by Ukrainian snipers remain classified. What we see publicly is just the tip of the iceberg. Military experts estimate that for every case reported in the media, there are dozens of successful operations kept secret to protect tactics, techniques, and procedures. It's easy to get impressed by the numbers and the tech, but we need to understand the real strategic impact these snipers have on the battlefield. It's not just about taking out individual targets. The role of these specialized soldiers goes far beyond body counts. First, there's a devastating psychological effect. When troops know there are snipers operating in the area who can pick them off at distances where they can't even see the threat, it creates a constant level of psychological stress. Movements become hesitant. Decisions are made out of fear. Commanders become reluctant to expose their forces, even when tactically necessary. This phenomenon, known as psychological suppression, can paralyze entire units without a single shot being fired. Second, long-range snipers create area denial zones. Essentially, they can make certain regions inaccessible to enemy movement day and night. Key crossings, supply roads, observation points, all can be effectively controlled by a single well-positioned sniper with the right gear. That forces the enemy to take long detours, wasting precious time and resources. Snipers also play a crucial role in intelligence operations. Equipped with advanced observation gear, they're often placed in prime overwatch positions where they can monitor enemy movement for days or weeks. The information they collect about movement patterns, unit sizes, types of equipment, and supply routes is invaluable for higher-level operational planning. There's also the aspect of eliminating high-value targets. Field commanders, technical experts, operators of critical systems, these are priority targets whose removal can throw entire enemy operations into disarray. A sniper who neutralizes a battalion commander isn't just taking out one person. They're potentially destabilizing the whole chain of command for that unit, causing confusion and hesitation that friendly forces can exploit. From an economic standpoint, snipers offer an extraordinary return on investment. Training and equipping a sniper costs a fraction of what it takes to keep mechanized units or heavy artillery operational. Yet the strategic impact they can have is disproportionate to the investment. A single well-placed sniper can stop the advance of an entire armored column by taking out vehicle commanders or comms operators. Integration with other military capabilities multiplies their effectiveness even more. Snipers working in coordination with drone units can identify and neutralize enemy air defense systems, clearing the way for air strikes. Operating alongside conventional infantry, they can remove threats that would permit the safe advance of larger units. And we can't forget the impact on modern information warfare. Videos of extraordinary precision shots, thermal camera footage showing successful nighttime eliminations. That material has significant propaganda value. It demonstrates technical competence, moral strength, and technological superiority, both to allies and to adversaries. Like any arms race, the development of offensive tech inevitably leads to defensive countermeasures. And in the case of thermal scopes, opposing forces didn't stand still in the face of that threat. The simplest and surprisingly effective countermeasure has been the use of emergency thermal blankets, those silver blankets you see in first aid kits and marathons. These blankets, made of metallized polyester, work by reflecting infrared radiation, effectively masking the thermal signature of whoever's covered by them. Enemy soldiers started using these blankets as makeshift cloaks, and while they're not perfect, they can significantly reduce the distance at which they can be detected by thermal gear. Another observed tactic is the use of heat decoy generators, devices that emit thermal signatures similar to humans or vehicles, creating false targets that can confuse spotters or waste precious ammunition. Some are as simple as containers with burning fuel. Others are more sophisticated electronic devices that can simulate the specific thermal pattern of a vehicle engine or a group of people. Interestingly, Ukraine has also developed its own thermal camouflage tech, a special fabric that incorporates layers of insulating and reflective materials can reduce a soldier's thermal signature by up to 70%. That material, when used as a cape or poncho, makes the wearer significantly harder to detect with thermal gear, especially at long ranges where thermal image resolution is naturally lower. There are also more traditional tactical countermeasures. Moving during heavy rain or snowstorms, when even advanced thermal gear loses effectiveness. Using special thermal smoke that not only blocks normal vision but also confuses thermal sensors. And perhaps most importantly, changes in operational doctrine, avoiding predictable movement patterns, minimizing exposure during peak sniper activity times, and using covered routes whenever possible. But maybe the most effective countermeasure is simply developing equivalent capabilities. When both sides have snipers with advanced thermal gear, it creates a peculiar kind of stalemate where every movement must be calculated with the knowledge that you may be observed. That turns the battlefield into a deadly game of chess where patience, discipline, and tactical intelligence become as important as gear and marksmanship. Looking ahead, we can clearly see that the tech trajectory is pushing us toward capabilities that are even more impressive and, frankly, frightening. The systems being developed now will make current equipment look primitive by comparison. Several defense tech firms are already testing sighting systems that incorporate AI directly into the rifle scope. These systems can automatically identify targets, compute firing solutions, and even compensate for movement from both shooter and target. Some advanced prototypes can even virtually hold the shot until all conditions are ideal to ensure a hit, firing automatically at the perfect moment. Integration with battlefield data networks is becoming ever more sophisticated. Imagine a scenario where every sniper is connected to a network that automatically shares target info, weather data, positions of friendly and enemy forces, all in real time. The system could automatically assign targets to the best positioned shooter, optimizing operational effectiveness in ways impossible with purely human coordination. There are also developments in smart ammunition. Projectiles that can make small in-flight trajectory corrections, adjusting tiny fins to compensate for wind or other factors. Rounds that can identify their own target using built-in sensors, effectively turning each bullet into a mini-guided missile. This tech already exists in larger artillery shells. It's only a matter of time before it's miniaturized for precision rifles. Thermal scopes are evolving too. Next-generation thermal sensors will have resolution comparable to normal high-definition optical cameras, allowing positive identification of targets at even greater distances. Image processing algorithms are being developed that can see through thermal camouflage, identifying subtle patterns that indicate human presence even when the thermal signature is being masked. Autonomous drones are another frontier. Systems that can patrol designated areas autonomously, identify potential targets using AI, and then mark those targets for human snipers or, in some cases, engage directly. The line between reconnaissance drone and autonomous weapon is getting thinner and thinner. But perhaps the most significant development is the fusion of all these technologies into integrated systems. We're no longer talking about a sniper with a better scope. We're talking about a node in a network of sensors, processors, and effectors spread across the battlefield. A system where the distinction between observer, decision processor, and executor is becoming increasingly abstract. From an ethical standpoint, these technologies raise deep questions. When AI is doing most of the work identifying targets and calculating firing solutions, to what extent is the human really in control? And as systems become more autonomous, are we approaching a future where machines make lethal decisions with minimal human oversight? International organizations are already debating these issues. Calls are being made for treaties to set limits on the level of autonomy allowed in weapon systems. But as history repeatedly shows, the pace of tech development often outstrips the ability of international regulation to keep up. What is certain is that the battlefields of the future will be even more lethal and technologically complex than today's. And snipers, whether human or increasingly assisted by autonomous systems, will continue to play critical roles in that environment. When we look at the history of Ukrainian snipers and their use of advanced thermal technology, we are seeing more than just impressive military feats. We are witnessing a fundamental transformation in the nature of modern warfare. But this evolution is far from over, and that's why we'll be here guiding you and telling you everything about the battlefield front.